G'day from Australia. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from which I'm broadcasting. I'd also like to pay my respect to elders past and present. My name is Ashley Davis. Welcome to my coding live stream. I'm continuing development of my Kanban board extension for Visual Studio Code. In the last session, I was converting the React-based UI to TypeScript. I got a little bit stuck at the end of that session, and in between live streams, I found a solution. Starting in today's session, we're going to have a quick review of that to see what I did to fix it and finish that conversion. And then we're going to move on to integrating the Kanban board data conversion function that I have developed over the several sessions of test-driven development live streamed last year. And we're actually closing in on the final sessions in this project. So at the end of today, I hope to have this Visual Studio Code extension close to usable. Obviously, there's still going to be things to patch up afterwards, features to add, that kind of thing. But it's coming to a conclusion. And of course, the ultimate goal is to get this thing published on the Visual Studio Code marketplace. So it's going to be a great day when I actually achieve that. As I'm working, I'm going to do my best to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. You can see my Twitter handle on screen. It's AshleyDavis75. I'm just going to, I'll switch over. So this is a prototype of the project. It's actually the real project, but in prototype form. You can see here I've got in Visual Studio Code, I've got my Kanban board extension displayed in a web view on the right here. On the left is a task list in Markdown format that I'm editing. And as you can see, when I'm rearranging this, if you watch on the left here, you can watch that I'm actually rearranging items in my task list in the Markdown file. So that's what this thing is. It's a Trello board basically integrated into Visual Studio Code that's editing a document that's in your repository, in your code repository, co-located with your project. So, as I said, this is a prototype. This is something I developed before I started live streaming these sessions, and since then I've been working to do this properly, to do test-driven development, because I've got to convert from this Markdown file into the data for this Kanban board and back again. And that code's all written. I'm not sure it's 100% complete yet, because what I'm about to do today is integrate it and actually get it working with the UI. And this thing should be closing in on getting finished. I'm not quite sure yet how much more work there will be to do. Now, this is all on GitHub. If you go to my GitHub, that's Ashley Davis on GitHub, and find Taskboard VS Code extension, you can grab the code for this yourself. You can fork it. In the last session, which you can find on YouTube, I showed how to clone the project. So if you want to clone this and work on it, have a look at the previous session. That's available on YouTube. So my YouTube channel is The Data Wrangler. If you click on playlists, if you look under the coding live stream taskboard, you will see all the different, let me just pause that. You'll see all the different videos I've created so far. So we're actually, today we're up to part 9. So we're quite a way in, but feel free to catch up on YouTube. Now, the Trello board in this project is making use of React Trello. So this project wouldn't be feasible for me if I have to recreate Trello, but fortunately someone's already done that. So feel free to jump on GitHub and have a look at this React Trello project for yourself. It's pretty cool. They've got this storybook here where it shows you all the different ways that you can use this component. So obviously it's a React component for use in React, but React is what I use, React is what I love, and React is what I'm using for this project. Now, let's just jump into the code here for a second. I've just run my test just previously just to make sure that all my tests were still passing. This is what I do when I'm picking up any project after I haven't touched it, and I've barely touched this project in a week. So most of the work I'm doing on this project is 100% live streamed to you. But I've run my test to make sure they're all working. Now I can look at my diff, at what I've got progress directly from the command line using Git Diff. That's going to show me what's changed. I've got a bunch of changes also that have actually been, so that's what the changes that are in my working directory. I've actually also got a bunch of changes from the last session staged that I haven't commit, because I ended the last live stream on a bit of a cliffhanger, and that there was a bit of a problem with the conversion that I couldn't quite figure out in the time I had then. So I'm about to show you what I did to fix that. Probably the best way to do that. Let's open up Visual Studio Code first, though. So code dot. We'll open it from the current directory. So if this is your first time watching, you're wondering why it's the fourth working directory, it's because every few sessions in the live stream I clone a new working copy. And sometimes that's just because I want to keep a record of what I did in the last live stream, like on my computer. But normally when I'm working in production, I wouldn't have quite so many working copies of a project. Maybe I'd have 1 or 2 working copies and that was it. But that's just an artifact of the way I'm live streaming this. So this is the Visual Studio Code project. Let's zoom in a bit. So last week I was working on making changes to this to convert the React application to TypeScript. So the extension code is one project under this working for directory. The React application that we're going to display in the extension is a whole separate project in a subdirectory. I'm actually just going to open that in a separate Visual Studio Code. So if I cd down to the React app and I open code from that directory. So here I've just drilled down just to the React application. I can actually run this standalone at the moment. I've got it set up for testing, and I'll show you that in a second. You can see here I've got a TSX file. So this in the last session that was a JavaScript file, but I've changed it to a TypeScript file. Now let's just review the changes that I made to get to that point. This is Sourcetree. So Sourcetree is a great code for visually understanding what you're doing with Git. I can look at all the changes here that I've already staged for commit. So these here are the changes that I made in the last live stream. And then I've got a couple of unstaged files here that I made between live streams. I just wanted to keep those separate for the moment just so I could show you in this review what I'd done. So to convert a JavaScript project to TypeScript, I've removed Babel. So it was using Babel as its compiler to compile to backward compatible JavaScript. But I've installed, the main thing is here, I've installed TypeScript. I've installed the TS loader. That's what will load TypeScript into my Webpack configuration. And I've got the types for React. So that allows me to get, IntelliSense and automatic completion for types in React. Now, I didn't change much in the Webpack config. I changed from the Babel loader. I changed over to the TypeScript loader. Actually, let's have a look at this. I'll show you another cool tool here. I'm going to have a look at this in the external diff tool that I use, which is called what is it called? WinDiff. So I can from Sourcetree I can do a right click, choose external diff or Control D. And that gives me this really great interactive difference viewer. So on the left here you can see what it was. It was the Babel loader. On the right here you can see what it became, which is the TS loader. This is a really great program, WinDiff. I use it every day. If you're on Linux, I recommend a tool called, I think it's called Meld. I could be wrong. Hopefully I've got that right. I don't use Linux. I do have an Ubuntu laptop, but I don't use it that often. But I think that was the one that I was using when I was there. On Mac OS, I think it comes with or Xcode. Xcode might come with a pretty good, fairly basic differencing tool. But this, if you're on Windows, definitely get yourself a copy of WinMerge. It's really good. So here you can kind of scrutinize the changes. But basically we're saying, instead of finding JavaScript files, we want to find TSX files, and we want to use the TS loader instead of the Babel loader to include them in our bundle that we're building with Webpack. Now we made some changes. Oh no, we added a TS config file. I was sort of working through this TS config file. This is what configures the TypeScript compiler. I probably over-configured this. Last week when I was or the last session when I was trying to figure out what I'd done wrong, I was just fiddling with this configuration to no real conclusion. I'm going to leave that as it is for the moment because it works. But there's stuff here that I can remove. A couple of things here that are important are that I'm allowing implicit any types, and I'm allowing JavaScript. I don't really need that one enabled. That's an example of over-configuration. This one I think I do need still at the moment, because I haven't changed my code. My code is still JavaScript. I haven't actually included any types. And this allows the TypeScript compiler to implicitly assign the any keyword to anything that doesn't actually have an explicit type. Which is good when you're doing a conversion from JavaScript to TypeScript. My ultimate aim for this project, to have it cleaned up nicely, is to set that to true. And that'll make sure then I'll have lots of errors in my code then, and I'll have to go through and fix them and add the proper TypeScript types. I removed this Babel RC file. That's the Babel configuration file. We don't need it anymore. And I renamed the JavaScript file, the index.js to index.tsx. Now at this point, Webpack, it wasn't working. It was giving me an error. I can't remember what the error was, but it was pretty easy to fix. And ultimately, what I did to fix this is that I compared it to a working project that I had. And once I found the working project and compared them, I instantly saw the thing that I was missing that would make it work. But another way I could have done this was to look at the Webpack guide to TypeScript. So if you're on the Webpack website, webpackjs.org, under guides, under TypeScript, that actually tells you how to do the setup. So it's actually not difficult. You have to know a handful of steps. If you get any of these wrong, it doesn't work. But they've got some good documentation here, and this is exactly what I did. Almost exactly what I did, except for the thing that I got wrong. But this is almost exactly what I did in the last session, where I'm installing TypeScript, I'm installing the TS loader, I've added the TS config file, I've converted my JS file to a TS file. It's got the basic options here. I'll probably try and use that later to try and simplify the TS config file that I've got. It's got your Webpack config. This actual example here is a little bit different to the example that we've got. And the reason for that, if we look at the Webpack file here, the reason for that is we've got some plugins here that are, like this one especially, that's basically going to inline the source code and the CSS files into the HTML file. We wouldn't normally do that with a production website, and that's not the way that Webpack, or the default configuration for Webpack, works. But we need to do that for a TypeScript, for a Visual Studio extension. We need to pack everything in the HTML file, and I don't know if there's a way to kind of load separate resources for that for the web view that we're going to display in Visual Studio Code. There doesn't seem to be. I haven't found one yet. Anyway, so you might have already just seen the thing that I did to fix the problem from last week. Where is it? Yeah, here it is here. So this is the main thing I was missing. Let's have a look at this in the external diff tool. We'll have a look at this in WinMerge. I'm just hitting Control D, the hotkey, to load that. So you can see here on the right, in the latest version, I've added this resolve section, and that's telling it what extensions that it's allowed to include in the I guess as entry points in my bundle. And I was missing that, so it didn't know what to load or something like that. I'm not an expert in Webpack. I use it a lot. But once I get it set up, I tend not to touch it. So I'm not an expert at configuring Webpack, and I don't think I ever will be. I've also added source maps. This helps for debugging. So that was it. That was what was preventing it from working last week. That was it. That was the final piece of the puzzle that I was missing last week. The other thing I had to do... Oh, that looks like a nothing. Oh, no, here we go. There's just a bit of an extra thing that I don't need. Is that the way that I import React DOM is a little bit different here, now that it's a TSX file. So that was a problem that I fixed after I was testing. So let's generate a back file. I don't like having to look at these things or accidentally commit things in, like backup files or orig files or anything like that I don't need. So I'm just going to add that to my ignore file. You can do that easily in Sourcetree by right-clicking at the file, clicking ignore. It gives you various options here. What I want to do is I want to ignore all back files. So this will prevent Git from allowing me to commit, any back files in the future. It means I don't have to worry about those things again. So I'm going to stage all this to the working directory. I'll do my commit here. I'll do this. I'll do this commit from the command line. I normally do my commits from Sourcetree, but let's do it from the command line for fun. So I'm committing my working. I've already staged my changes, so I don't have to stage them. Normally, if I was going to stage them from here, I'd do add dot to stage everything that I've been working on. I've already done that in Sourcetree, so I'm just going to commit it with a message, converted the JavaScript React UI to TypeScript. Nice and simple, but it explains what I did. I'm going to push that up. So this is getting pushed up to the code repository now. And so if you're actually wanting to kind of see what that code looks like for yourself, you can pull that down and have a look at it, or you can clone the repo if you haven't done that yet. Now it's time to try it. Now, if we go back to the code repo, actually, you can see there instructions for running this and getting set up. So after you've cloned this, you want to do an npm install in the main directory, go down to the React app subdirectory and do an npm install there. I've already done all that. We can debug or run the React UI in test mode by itself by npm run start dev. Let's just do that, npm run start dev. Now I've got, this isn't running in the actual extension, and it's also running off test data. At the moment it's just sort of hard coded and hacked to run off the test data. Sometimes, I'm using the Webpack dev server for this. Sometimes it takes a moment to start. Oh, there we go. So cool. So this is the Kanban board with some test data. Once we have this integrated and running, it, once I've basically taken out the test data, it's going to show us in Visual Studio Code. It's going to show us the Markdown file that we've currently got selected. But if I want to work on this, this is a great way to work on it. Like, I don't have to run the actual extension to test this. I can just test it in a web page like this. But most of what I'm doing today is actually relies around actually getting this working properly in the extension. And what I want to do is, first of all, let's take out the test data. So I'm back in the React app. Let me just close down all that stuff there that I don't need. I'll delete this back file while I'm here. Now in index.tsx, there's a line here where it says comment this out to use test data instead. So that makes it use the real data that's been serialized across from the extension. Now I'm changing what I'm doing here a little bit. The way I was planning on doing this was sending the Markdown data by itself from the extension across to the web view, and then converting it to the Kanban board data in the web view. And that's why I needed to use this TypeScript function. I'll show you the TypeScript function. So that's in the extension code base under source in the convert. So this is the converter function or set of functions. This is the main one here that converts Markdown AST to board data. So I was going to copy the entire Markdown file, or maybe the abstract syntax tree for the Parse Markdown file to the web view. I wanted to then use this function in the web view to convert it to the board data. And then basically in the web view, then whenever you did an edit in the Kanban board, we'd update the AST, we'd do some surgery on the abstract syntax tree, and then we'd deserialize and send it back, or we'd send the AST back. But after I thought it through last week, I sort of thought, actually, that means a lot of data is being transmitted between the extension and the web view. So that doesn't sound good to me. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to slightly change what I was planning, and I'm not going to call this function in the web view. I'm actually going to call this function in the extension. So in the extension, I'm going to parse the Markdown. I'm going to parse it to the abstract syntax tree. I'm going to use this function here to convert it to the Kanban board data, and then I'm going to send the Kanban board data as a message to the web view. And then all I need to do basically to get updates back is I need to send small packets of data back to update the abstract syntax tree that's in the extension. So I think I'm going to be sending or transmitting less data by doing this. The end result though is that I'm not calling this function from my web view, which basically means I didn't need to convert my web view, my React UI to TypeScript. So I sort of wasted a session last week doing that. because I don't really need that now. My plans have changed. But that's okay because I like TypeScript. I wanted that code to be TypeScript anyway. So I'm happy I did that conversion, and it didn't take very long. I think it's going to help me in the future, but it's just because it's, you know, I like the safety of having the type checking of TypeScript. So plans have changed. Let's just do some plans about what I'm going to do here. So when the document, this is kind of like pseudocode, but it's just so I know what I'm doing. And some of this already kind of works, but some of it's going to be different to what I've got. So in Visual Studio, so in the extension, the current Markdown document changes. Current selected Markdown document changes. We're going to parse the Markdown to the abstract syntax tree. Now we're using, I think it's called Remark Unify. I'll have to check the name of that we're using to do that parsing of the Markdown. And then we're going to use our conversion function to convert the AST to board data. We're going to send the board data to the web view. That'll make sense. And now, okay, so I'm just going to put that under there. That's like an event. The event is in the extension that the current selected Markdown document has changed, and then we do all this stuff basically to get the document into the Kanban board data format and get that data to the web view. And then we're going to wait for a change to come back in. So this is like another event in the extension. Update received from the web view. And what are we going to do? So you can see here, like I'm doing a bit of planning. Like I'm not just diving straight into the code. I'm having a little bit of a think about what I'm going to do first. And you know, I'm writing this out in a text file. You know, that is something I often do. I often do that when I'm actually working on any project. Now, another way I do this is I get out my whiteboard or I get out a pen and paper and I kind of draw stuff and I draw the messages that are being passed around. It's a little bit harder to do that in a live stream. I really wish I could just. I don't have a touchscreen on my laptop. Otherwise, I could try drawing on the screen or something. Anyway, so an update is received from the web view. And that's going to represent a change to the AST. So we're going to parse the update, make the change to the AST, and then we're going to basically serialize the AST back to Markdown and put it in the file. So serialize AST to Markdown, replace the file content with the new Markdown. Now, because we're holding the AST, the abstract syntax tree, in memory, and we're making updates to that, we're not going to lose any data that's already there. So there's no way that we can kind of basically hopefully wipe out content or user content that doesn't conform to the Kanban board data format. Now, hopefully that'll make sense. Now, in the web view, what we're going to be doing, so receive new document. So let's just say receive new board data. So what we're actually sending to the web view now is board data. We're going to receive that, apply the board data to the Kanban board. This is like an event as well. Apply the board data to the Kanban board, and then what we're doing is like we're waiting for edits. So there's various events that the React Trello component is gonna raise. We're gonna handle those events, and we're gonna send changes back to the extension. So wait for edits or editing events. Send editing events to the extension. So it seems a bit simpler when you get it down like this. I'm just going to save this file as plan.md for Markdown. So this is my plan. And following this plan through to the conclusion should get me something that's usable. It's going to be usable. Hopefully I can then start using it in my day-to-day coding, which I really want to do. And there's going to be, obviously after that, there's going to be some features I want to implement on top of what's there already. There's probably going to be bugs I need to fix and things like that. There's a bit of refactoring I want to do on this whole project. But I'm not diving into that until I've got the result I want. So in extension.ts here, we've got the main code for the extension. I'm just going to put my plan off to the side here. I normally do a lot of work on my desktop computer, and it's got 3 screens. So as you can see, I haven't got a lot of screen real estate here on the laptop. But I normally work with multiple Visual Studio Code open. So at the moment, what have I got open here? I've got the React app open in Visual Studio Code. I've got a command prompt. I've got GitHub open. I've got the whole extension code project open. I can have a bunch of things displayed on separate screens on my desktop. But unfortunately I'm not set up for live streaming on the desktop. Otherwise that would be pretty cool. I might get that set up at some point in the future. So what I want to do, I've already got an event for this. So this event where the current selected document changes. I've already got an event for that, if I can remember where it is in here. Now this code, I didn't start this code. This project was started. If we just go back to the repo, you can see I've got a link to the original code base here. See, original code. The original code was derived from this one here, VS Code React extension. So I needed a shortcut to learn how to build an extension that had a React component in it as the UI. So that's why I started with someone else's project. So I'm very, very grateful that that project was there and that I was able to start with that. But I don't agree with some of the structure of this project. So, if you're looking at this code here and thinking, maybe it's not as elegant as I would like, then I would agree with you. There are some issues with this code that I want to correct, I want to restructure. But, that's just, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The guy who made this project, who I'm really grateful for starting this, and giving me something to as a basis to start from, he probably thought this code was great. He probably loved it. But, so it's all about, it all comes down to your own style, really. But some parts of this I definitely want to change, some of the way these messages are sent. I want to get a working result. I want to get something that demonstrably gives me value before I come back and refactor it. So I'm holding off on that. Stay tuned for that. Now, I do have... am I even looking at the right file? There is only one file for this extension, so this must be it. Oh, here it is. Here it is here. So we're in the initialization function for the whole extension here, start command handler. And I've got the interface to Visual Studio Code, and I'm hooking this event on did change active text editor. And so when we get that, and also the first time we kind of open the extension, I'm doing this as well. I'm sending this document changed message over to the web view. So if I hit, actually that's just here. So here's that function here, send document changed message. Effectively what it's doing here is it's sending, so we've got the web view, we're posting a message to it. We're saying it's the document changed event command. That's fine, that name is fine, it's all good. We're sending over the file or language ID. Where the language ID actually is always going to be Markdown. I think I added this later. So only if it's Markdown do we send the message, because we don't care about we don't care about code files or anything else you might have open in Visual Studio Code. We only care about it if it's a Markdown file, and we're pulling the text of that document. So this document, where do we get that from? Oh, so it comes from, so the editor is passed into our event. We get that from the parameter. I'm going to rename this actually. This is a little refactor that will help make this understandable. This parameter E here, I'm going to use F2 and do a refactor rename. So you can see I changed that in multiple places. So the parameter to this event being raised is the editor. We're passing that through to this function here. We're pulling out the document from that. I'm going to take a leap here and say that maybe there's something wrong with this, and there is no document. Just a bit of defensive coding here to cater for errors that I'm not aware of. I'm just going to return. So that's all good. But the thing is here, I'm pulling out the entire text of the document, and that's not what I want to do. What I want to do here instead, and bear in mind this is all working to some extent, right? So I went back to my React application. I'm using real data. I can actually run this. In fact, before I change any code, I'm going to hit F5. This is all configured that I can hit F5 to run this from Visual Studio Code. What this is going to do now is it's going to build the React application. You can see down here in the terminal, it's building it in production mode. It's going to build the web. It's going to take a moment to actually build that into a static web page, and then it's going to start up the actual. It's going to start up a new instance of Visual Studio Code with my extension loaded for debugging. So what it's doing now is it's doing a TypeScript compilation. Here we go. So a new instance of Visual Studio Code is coming up. Now I guess I don't have a project open. Ooh, what did I just do? Something weird's going on there. Let's just make sure I can open my Kanban board anyway. So I've got the command there to open a Kanban board. There won't be anything there because I don't have a Markdown file. Let's create a temporary file. We'll call it, we'll just call it to-do.markdown. Cool. So let's add a to-do. Okay, do I need a hat? Okay, something's obviously gone wrong with it. It's not working 100%. But that's okay. Like, we're going to run through the process of actually getting it working now, if it's not already. Be interesting to know what's wrong with it, because it should still be working. But I'm not going to worry too much about that. What I want to do here, I'm just going to put in some console logging so I can see, what's being logged out here. So I probably need a better development process for this extension. It takes too long to start this thing up, and I think maybe if I sort of cache the actual kind of web view or something like that, so it doesn't have to rebuild the React project every time. So I'm in the debug console here in the original project. Now I'm switching back to the Kanban board project. If I switch between these, what do I get? Oh yeah, so you can see here that that's where it's printed out the language ID. Where's that? That's there. That's where it prints out the file name, just here. And then it prints out the actual file itself. So that's cool. Now what I want to do is I actually want to, this is where I want to convert this to, I want to parse this to Markdown. And I do have some code somewhere here that does this. I think it might be in my prototype code here in the React application. Actually, I've got the React application open here in a separate. So let's look at that. So just going back up to the start of this, the main file in the React application, I've got Markdown. This is where I'm converting it. So I've got a Markdown input here, and I'm converting it to a Markdown abstract syntax tree. This is the exact code that I want to move out of the web view and into the extension here. So obviously I don't have the imports I need to do this. Let's get those set up. So I need this from Markdown processor. I'm going to need this to Markdown. That's when I translate back from the AST to Markdown. So I'll need that as well. So let's get those. They're just being created globally. I'm not sure if that's the best idea for this going forward, but let's just keep what I've got working. And then I've got various imports here for libraries that I need for doing my parsing. It's been months, like a couple of months ago, in last year, that I actually did my initial prototype of Markdown parsing, and you can basically look back through some of my live stream sessions and find that if you want. Also, I tweeted about this extensively as I was doing it, so feel free to have a look back through some of my tweets, or search my tweets for Taskboard and Foam, and you'll see some interesting stuff. So I've got a couple of other libraries here that I need to install into my extension project. I mean, that's just the same as installing any kind of any npm module into any kind of Node.js project. It's no different. So it's npm install save. I need unified, so I'm just cutting and pasting the names of these from the code onto the command line. And I'm going to install all of these modules that I need for parsing up a Markdown format into a Markdown abstract syntax tree. I'm working in TypeScript, so I probably need type definitions for all these as well. And I'll do that as a separate step in a moment. Okay, that's finished. So to install the type definitions, if they exist, they might not exist, but we're in TypeScript, so let's find out. I'm saving these as development dependencies, right? So that's because these are just used during the compilation process. They're not used for production, and I'm using the @types prefix to say that I just want to get a types library for it, a type definitions for it, if they exist. Hopefully they will, and that means I get proper. No, so that's not there. Like this unified one definitely isn't there. So it could be that they've got types included. Let's just try. I'll try converting this to TypeScript. This import statement here. Oh, that seems to work. There's some sort of weirdness there. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, sorry, I was missing the as keyword. Oh, well, that's really cool. Not all libraries come with TypeScript types included. Sometimes the community has made them separately as a separate package, and that's why you have to kind of install those separate types packages. But it looks like these libraries they're either built in TypeScript or someone's created the TypeScript types separately but included them in the packages. So I'm really happy when people kind of include TypeScript's type definitions directly in their projects like that. So that's pretty cool. That looks good. Now I can actually use this. Where was that? So I've got the code for that here. I've got the Markdown AST. I'm just going to go to the next level up now. I'm just going to console log this. So just coding line by line and using console logging to verify. I'm gonna print that out as JSON so that we can see the whole thing. I'm not sure if this has got any kind of live reload feature. I kind of doubt it. Well, let's just see if I can switch between these things and have it give me the updated message. No. So what I really want to do is, again, I might work on my development process a little bit between live streams. I'd really love to have this be live reloadable so that I can make code changes here and not have to restart my extension. So that's what I'm doing now, though. I'm just hitting F5 again to kind of restart my extension and to see if I can get that abstract syntax tree out. I could be doing more steps, so I'm doing really, small iterative steps, and I often do work this way. I often do work in very small iterations, and that's so that I can get feedback while I'm working. Okay, we go to the debug console. Some kind of error. That's not what I expected. Let's clear that. Oh, it helps if I open the Kanban board. This is another thing you get. So, every time I make a change, I've got to restart the extension. I've got to open the Kanban board. It's all things that get in the way of my fast, rapid pace of development that I want to have. it's going on my to-do list to try and get live reload working for this before the next live stream. Okay, cool. So here we've got a small abstract syntax tree printed out for the Markdown file. That's the next step. That's great. The next step after that is to actually convert this to Kanban board data. And for that, we want to call the actual converter function here, Markdown AST to board data. So I'm just going to copy and paste the name of that in. And then I'm going to hit Control dot, I think it is, yep, to have it automatically import this for me. So that's what I love about Visual Studio Code, is that it can figure out stuff like that for you. Now what do I need? I need to pass in my Markdown AST. I've never bothered yet adding types, so you can see if we look at this, the type of the input here is any. So I haven't bothered putting any types around the abstract syntax tree. Now the parse function actually returns a node, so I could type this actually, but I'm going to come back. I'm running out of time today, so I'm not going to attempt that now. In fact, I might just keep a few notes about things I want to do later. So type the Markdown AST. I want to add types for that. What was the other thing I wanted to do? I'll remember later anyway. Oh, that's right. Get set up for live reload of the extension. That'll make my development so much quicker if I can get that working. So I've got my board data now. I'm just going to reuse this console log here to look at what the board data is giving me. I'll just comment out some of this earlier logging so that it's not getting in the way. I'm going to stop this, hit F5 to restart. Yep, we've got to do this again. Live reload, it's just so important. You know, in my book, Bootstrapping Microservices, I tell you how to build a system for doing live reload of both individual microservices and the full microservices application as a whole. So it's just like, it's so important that you can make small changes and get feedback almost instantly. And I'm just not set up to do that with this project. And it's partially just because, you know, I just don't know how to do that yet for a Visual Studio Code extension. This is, of course, my first time developing a Visual Studio Code extension, so I'm kind of learning stuff while I'm live streaming, which is a bit scary, but anyway. So what do we get here now in our output? Just looking at the debug console again. We've got a empty lane. So the question is, what do I need to do? Let's have a look at my demo that I had open earlier. Do I still have that open? Yep, there it is. I'm just gonna. I know this is in the correct format. Oh, it needs triple hash. Let's try that. I sort of forgotten what it takes. So cool. Okay, so we've got a Markdown board from our data. That's working. That's nice. And now we should see. If I go back to that debug console, not what I expected. Let's just clear that and just. Not that. All right. Where's the one? I'm getting lost now. Here we go. So I'm just going to switch between them again so that I can trigger that change to come through. Something weird's going on here. Like, you know, there's something about this that's not quite working correctly, this function. Because I'm printing out the board data here and they're saying there's no lanes. So what I'm going to try and do is just to see if I can figure out what's going on here, is I'm going to take this whole example over and put it in there. I mean, that's working the way I expect, right? It screws the Markdown file. I mean, that's one of the main things I want to rectify in the non-prototype version of this. Let's have a look at that debug console again. So anyway, there's something wrong with the output of this function. So I'm gonna go offline now. I think I've got a bit of figuring out to do what's wrong with this. Ultimately, what I want to do here is let's just sort of get this set up for what I want it to look like for the start of next session. I don't want to pass the text through. Now, I'm just going to go quickly here with that because I've already hit something that's broken. I don't want to spend a bit of time now. I'm running out of time. I don't want to spend the time now to fix it. I just do want to show you. I want to move quickly without testing to show you where I'm headed with this. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to be having here like board data, something like that. Call it board data. And I'll pass through that board data that we've just, obviously it's not working at the moment, but it will be working for the next session. So we're passing that through. So we've satisfied part of the plan here. We're parsing the Markdown to abstract syntax tree. We're converting that to board data. We're sending that to the web view. Now we have to actually go into the web view and do this bit. Receive the new board data and apply the board data to the Kanban board. So I'm going to switch over to the React app project. Now, we've already got, there's a bunch of stuff that's going to be removed here, like these prototype functions for conversion, they're going to be gone. We're not going to be doing any of this Markdown stuff in the web view, that's all moved to the extension. But I don't want to break this code yet, it's still in some sort of working state. Now, let me remember where's the code that handles the message. It might be in this interaction class. VS Code. Browser interactor, maybe that's it. No. Interactor. No. Update document. This is the message that I'm looking for. Where does that get implemented? I'll just search for that in the main file here. Oh no, that's a message going back the other way. This looks, oh, here it is here. So I'm hooking this on the interactor. This is something that I'm going to restructure. I don't really fully understand the intent about how this is supposed to work, but I did originally kind of put this event in there, document changed event, that is handling that event coming through to say the document has changed. Now, instead of text coming through, instead of the Markdown, what's going to happen is it's going to be the board data. So we're pulling that out, and then we're going to set the state on the React component to just be that board data. So here we were calling Markdown to board. That's happening in the extension now. That's not happening here. So we'll be setting the data. Now this board data. So setting state on the React component for the data, that's going to cause the web view to refresh. Call the render function again. It's going to extract the data from the state, and it's going to plug the data directly into the board. So you can see how at this point, if what I was doing in the extension was working, if this function was working correctly, I would basically just have completed this first part of the plan, and then be starting to work on the updates on the editing part of it. That is going to have to wait till next live stream. I'm well and truly out of time, and I have to get started on my normal day job, which will be starting on in about 10 minutes time. So thanks for joining me again. So we're moving forward to getting this thing usable. So I want to start using this every day to manage my to-do lists. I don't actually want to use Trello anymore. I want to manage to-do lists for like my phone repository, for any of my open source projects. I want to manage them within those to-do lists from within Visual Studio Code, and this is going to make that possible. In between live streams, I'm going to figure out what's wrong with that function converting to board data. We'll do a review of what changed in the next session, and then I'll be moving on with actually being able to edit, get the data back properly without losing any data. And hopefully in the next session, I'll be looking pretty good. At the end of the next session, I'll be looking hopefully pretty good to actually start using this for myself, and that's going to be wonderful. And I hope you tune in for that next week. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you in a week. Bye bye.